Okay, B'Sha'ah Tova. So we're starting today the fifth perek. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. And it's interesting because the fifth perek, the beginning, the first pasuk of the fifth perek, summarizes, according to the Malbim, the end of the period that Shlomo HaMelech was on the level of connection that he was in, that we've been discussing until now, during that third prophecy. And says the Malbim, the first pasuk concludes that, and after that, we will experience the fall down of Shlomo HaMelech. Yes, it's pretty drastic, actually. But the Malbim explains that Shlomo HaMelech, through this connection, where he was able to retain the nevuah and the prophecy on such deep physical level, there will be a level of comfort, a level of satisfaction that will kick in Shlomo HaMelech's behavior, and he will start to take this aura, to take this power, which is unheard of, and try at that point to conquer the vice in humanity. And
conquer
the vice in humanity. And the focus the vice he will choose to do so is the desire of woman. And that will be his fall down.
But when you say he chooses, he will be in comfort, is like comfort zone or a good comfort that he feels comfortable?
He feels comfortable. Bati legani. I want to start with the Malbim on this pasuk because it concludes, if you will, the third nevuah. Bati legani. I came into my garden. Says the Malbim, what is the garden? It's the nefesh. I was able to bring the neshama, to bring Kivyachol HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the way to a level of nefesh. We know that the nefesh is the spiritual influx that allows physicality to exist, right? Versus the neshama. This is why in the nefesh we have all the physical tendencies and desires. We've spoken many times about it. The Ari HaKadosh explains that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave man the desire to eat, the desire to reproduce, the desire to look good and to feel good and to take care of his body in order to survive. It's a survival instinct. However, throughout history of humanity, we lost track of the purpose of that instinctive, of the survival instinct, and turned it into a vice. Food became a vice. The desire for intimacy became a vice. Physicality became a vice, right? So Bati Legani, I came to the nefesh. There was an it'orerut nefesh. I was able to elevate myself. And it happened, Ariti Mori. Ariti Mori is I took the mir. I grabbed it. I cut it, right? Meaning I controlled, and we know that the mor is the essence, the strongest essence of the 10 essences of the Ketoret. Mor uktsiar, the mor is the one that is the most flavorous, that has the strongest smell. This is Mordechai, the Gemara says, Mordechai min Torah minayin. Where do we know that the name Mordechai is brought in the Torah? Sheneemar Mordro. Mordro are the two essence, and Mordro, and the Targum says Mara Dachia. Mara Dachia Mordechai. Mordechai was the strongest smell of Torah and Kedusha in his generation. He's so powerful that he doesn't allow other smell to dominate. This is why Mordechai lo yichra velo yishtachaveh. Mordechai doesn't bow and doesn't knee in front of no one. This is a representation of Mordechai in front of Haman. When you have a very strong dominance of essence in Kedusha, right? There's no room for lenience of Avodah Zarah, of Sheker. This was Mordechai, which, by the way, is a trait of personality you will find in a lot of people that are called Mordechai. They have principles, and you cannot break them, you cannot make them bow. That's the nature of the essence of someone that is called Mordechai. So says the Malbim, Bati legani. I was able to bring the neshama, I came down, I was able to be myself. Me, the neshama, I was able to exist in my nefesh. Ariti mori, I caught on, I grasped, yes, I plucked the mir, the more. Meaning right now, I'm in control, it's mine. That essence became a part of me. It's not just a spiritual aura that influences my behavior and helps me fight my demons and my desires. It became me, Ariti Mori. And I took it in besami, with the spice, with the smells. Says the Malbim, he says, this is the nefesh hiyunit. This is the animalistic and vegetative aspect of man. He was able to bring the Ruach Hashem to the most basic senses of man. The smell, the taste, to the basic instinct. And he says, and with this, I took it, in besami, I took it with the koach of the koach hamitorer. אכלתי ירעי עם דבשי. I ate the honeycomb with the honey with the honeycomb, right? You have the honey and you have the honeycomb, meaning the honeycomb represents, it is made of honey, but it represents the vessel where the honey resides. It's the structure that allows honey to basically be produced. So, says Shlomo HaMelech, not only that I ate the honey, but I ate the honeycomb. I control the structure. It's now, the Ruhanut is part of my structure. Shatiti yeni im halavi. I drank my wine with my milk. Says the Malvim, the wine and the milk, we've addressed it, we spoke about it. are byproducts. They're both byproducts, okay, that allow a strength and has an impact on a body. The milk strengthens the body. It has a very strong impact. It's not just honey that you enjoy with your mouth. And the same thing with wine. He says, this is the ability of the nefesh hasichli, the intellect, to control nature, the vegetation, which is the wine, and the animal kingdom, which is the milk, and turn it into ruhaniyut. So not only that I was able to bring that in and internalize it, but all the physicality around me, I control. I control the kingdom of vegetation and the animal kingdom. And on this, he says, now, let me use all this to impact Re'im, to impact, in this case, we're talking about the lovers. Who are the lovers? Who loves the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu residing in humanity, in this world, is the Olamot, right? The spiritual worlds. Because by generating so much Kedusha and Avodat Hashem, you impact the Olamot. So he says, Ichlu Re'im, feed yourself, my lovers, meaning my spiritual worlds. Shetu v'shichru dodim, drink and get drunk. Drink deep. Dodim, my beloved, says the Malbim, shichru v'shitu dodim, not only that I can impact my world, and this is the key word, and the fall down of Shlomo HaMelech, but I will influence the other olamot, the other worlds, the worlds that are not mine, the worlds that I don't have an impact on, I will impact in. What does that mean? Shlomo HaMelech understood at that point that through so much powerhouse of Kedusha and Avodat Hashem, I can start fighting and controlling the vice of desires that are forbidden. From that point on, Shlomo HaMelech, says the Malvim, will slowly for desires of women. He will add at a tremendous pace the numbers of pilakshot, of concubines, conquering his desire, but wanting to do a tikkun and infuse kedusha on that level amongst the goyim. Yes.
Can you repeat that line you said before? Before you said that he falls into the desire. What was the line?
I said that he was able, through this powerhouse of Kedusha and Avodat Hashem, or he thought that he was able to not only impact his world and his spiritual world, but sidetrack and go impact worlds that are not his, worlds that are forbidden. And to him, it wasn't chas v'shalom from a place of wickedness. It wasn't from a place of desire. It was from a place of wanting to do tikkun ha'olam. He wanted to be metakenet ha'olam. Shlomo HaMelech was the only king that had shalom with the entire, most of the planet. He was respected by everyone. He was loved by everyone. He was feared by everyone. And his belief was, let me change humanity. However, in Melachim Aleph, the Pasuk says, Ve'amelech Shelomo ahav nashim nochiyot rabot. He loved goyot.
I thought we just said it wasn't out of desire, but if he loved them, then there is a desire.
Oh, but that's already the fall down. That's where the crack happened. You start from a place of kedusha, and I guess this is the Yetzer Hara, right? You want to do something that you're crossing a line, thinking that you're going to come back, and you actually never do, because Shlomo HaMelech will never recover from that fall down until Akadosh Baruch Hu decides to take him from. He loved him so much and loved Shlomo HaMelech's avodah so much that he just couldn't bear seeing him like this. So at the end, he will just take him.
Rob, so two questions. One is that Shlomo Melech thought that the vice of women is the root of all
evil. Yeah.
So he decided that that is the thing that takes humanity down.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
And the second is he wanted to go to the other Alamot and change the root of the problem.
That's right.
Wow.
But the problem was that Vayamelech Shlomo ahav nashim nochiyot rabot. He loved goyot. He loved goyot, but not from a desire perspective, not from a dirty perspective, but he loved turning them around. He loved bringing them back, infusing kedusha, avodat Hashem.
But he wanted to convert people to Judaism.
Not to Judaism, convert them to avodat Hashem in their own ways. But the problem, the pasuk in Melachim says, "Vayatu nashav et levavo." The women were stronger than him, and they contaminated his heart. And the pasuk says, "Vayihi le'et ziknat Shlomo." It was at the older age of Shlomo. Nashav hatu et levavo achare Elohim acherim. The woman didn't just take Shlomo from a place of kedusha to a place of desire, of dirty desire. They took him to a place of avodah zarah.
When you say avodah zarah with Shlomo HaMelech, walk me through that. Explain to me, like, well, what does that really mean? You telling me he was bowing down to idols?
No, but he was seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu even in idols.
I didn't get it.
The Rambam says in Sefer Moreh Nevuchim, he asks a question. I'm not sure we discussed it. Maybe we did. He says, how is it possible that humanity worships stones? It makes no sense. Just make no sense. So how could that happen? I am discounting for now in the Rambam, the Midrash we have discussed, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took away the desire of Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. Okay? The Rambam doesn't address that. From a logical perspective, he says it makes no sense. So how can that happen?
The craving of physical connection.
So he said that in the beginning of creation, Adam HaRishon was talking to Hashem. Cain and Hevel, talking to Hashem, right? As generation starting to grow further from Adam HaRishon, Dor Enosh, they started saying, listen, says the Rambam, how do I connect to him? So they started finding the sun, the moon, the mountain, and they weren't talking to the sun or to the moon or to the mountain. They were just seeing, they were so in awe of that power, and through that awesomeness, they were channeling their connection to Hashem. But as generations went along, there was a lack of communication and explanation of what the great-grandfather was worshiping. And suddenly they started worshiping the sun, the moon, and the statues. So it's where it started from a point of connection to Hashem to eventually worshiping that representation, that point of connection. So Shlomo HaMelech essentially wanted to bring back the connection to Hashem through Avodah Zarah. So by accepting Avodah Zarah in his own ecosystem, in his own existence, it was in order to be able to show the world that the Avodah Zarah is only a tool to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's Avodah Zarah.
Wow.
We find someone else that also crossed the line and almost lost everything. It's Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef HaTzadik, when he went to serve or in the house of Potiphar on the day of the birthday of Paro, and everybody was out, there's a mahloket. There was nobody in the house. So why did he really go? Mahloket. Tanaim. Did he go because he wanted to do that? He wanted to sin with the wife of Potiphar? Or no? He went because he really went to work. Chachamim tell us that by putting himself in such a position and having that communication with Eshet Potiphar throughout that time, he lost 11 drops of seeds of sperm. He was supposed to also have 13 Shevatim. We know that we have 12 plus Cohen, right? Plus Levi. He lost 11 of them until he saw the face of his father, and he retained himself, and the last 2 drops are Ephraim and Menashe. So when Yaakov Avinu sees Yosef HaTzadik and he crosses his arm to bless his kids, and Yosef tells him, Dad, this is the Bechor and this is the second one. Yaakov tells him, Yadati beni yadati. I know my son, I know. Asaba Kadisha, one of my ancestors, the Rif, Rabbi Yoshiahu Pinto, the Baal HaEn Yaakov, 500 years ago, in Kesef Nifhar, writes there that Yaakov tells him, I saw Beruach HaKodesh that you were supposed to have 13 kids. You lost 11 drops. And because of my face, because of me, you retained the 2. Li yihiu keReuven veShimon. Ephraim and Menashe are mine like Reuven and Shimon, meaning it's because of me that you have those 2. So they're mine, they're not yours. This is why Ephraim and Menashe are considered part of the Shvatim. So going back to Shlomo HaMelech, he's, at least according to the Rambam, he wanted to show people, to show the world that Avodah Zarah is only a vector to get to Hashem, but it's Avodah Zarah. So between the desire of women, he got to the Avodah Zarah. The small Yetzer Hara took him to the big Yetzer Hara. We see that there are lines we're not allowed to cross. Chachamim tell us, Da ma sheta'aneh la'apikorus, ve'al da, ve'al ta'aneh. you should have answers for the apikorus. You know what's apikorus, right? The al tashiv. But don't get into an argument to answer.
not ready.
You know what to answer, but don't get into the argument so that you have to answer. Because it's a line
then your mind will wander.
That he may take you down. Here the Malbim basically brings to our attention this very dramatic fall down, until the point where the pasuk says, "Vayit anev Hashem b'Shlomo." HaKadosh Baruch Hu despised Shlomo HaMelech. He was disgusted from Shlomo. He was upset, angry at Shlomo. Ki nata levavo me'im Hashem Elokei Yisrael, because he shifted his heart from Hashem. ויאמר השם לשלמה, יען היית זאת עמך ולא שמרת בריתי וחוקותיי אשר ציוויתי עליך, הקרוע אקרא ממלכה מעליך. Hashem comes to Shlomo HaMelech and tells him, because you didn't listen and you didn't stay connected and you decided to gamble our relationship, I will rip the kingdom from you. And Shlomo wakes up and says, wow, what just happened to me? I can't believe this happened to me. And he's going to do teshuvah. Unfortunately, he will never recover prophetically from what went through. And he was so sad and so depressed of what he destroyed that finally he's going to pass away.
When does he come to the realization that he fell?
HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come to him.
That's a chesed.
And this is the fifth perek. This is the pasuk bet of the perek. Ani yeshena, I'm asleep. Veli bi'er, but my heart is still awake. Kol dodi, the sound of my master, of my beloved, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, dofek. I hear Hashem knocking on my door. What are you doing? Pitchi li achoti ra'ayati, Hashem says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, open the door.
Open the door. What is this?
No, I'm in the one second. אחותי רעייתי יונתי, כן? פתחי לי אחותי רעייתי יונתי תמתי. Unfortunately, we're going to see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he goes and he wants to open the door, that when Hashem is hitting him, Hashem is gone. Hashem is gone. It's a dramatic fall down. Yes.
Rob, this is perhaps not a good question, but it's a little bit weird that he's so high and suddenly the story finishes with like he goes down, and how could it be? What's the logic?
Agreed.
So the answer to your, obviously it's a phenomenal question, right? Now, what's important is that you cannot expect reality to be a movie that the end is always a happy ending.
I want to understand the logic, not the ending. Yeah. How could it be?
Well, here comes the exposure of playing fire with women, playing with fire. If you think you're in control, you're never in control. Even Shlomo HaMelech himself, at the level we have discussed, can have such a dramatic and drastic collapsing.
We learned the power of the wife in this week's parasha.
Yes. Yes. All the way around. Yes. Because both
and the ability to push you either way.
Either way. You can save, a wife builds, a wife destroys, right?
And this is the root why people who are very religious, they don't like even like to see a
Yes,
thing, zero.
zero. Yes,
Not even see only his wife and
yes, yes,
wow.
yes, yes. Now, obviously, Shlomo HaMelech here was not, we don't have any indications that he was, failing in talking or in seeing. There was this, it came from a very, very holy place. Correct? Very holy place.
It seemed that it came from a holy place.
No.
But the root was Yetzer Hara playing.
Yes, yes. At the end, yes, you're right. At the end, but
it started.
But in Shlomo HaMelech perspective, whatever we can understand from it, it's yes, it from his perspective, it was all kadosh, it was all tahor, right? It was he became a missionary, kivyachol, almost, right? But yes, that was the Yetzer Hara fishing.
That's his magic.
Yes.
To make you think
it's... That's why he calls him Zaken Ksil. In Kohelet, he calls him the wicked old man. Because the Yetzer Hara is very old. He's seen it all. He's been everywhere. So he knows exactly how to manipulate you and play with you. אבל מה לעשות? This, what's interesting is that exactly in the middle of Shir HaShirim, we went from a rocket trajectory and boom, crash. And now, from this moment, from Pasuk Bet all the way until the end, it will be the recovery or trying to recover, the work and the efforts that Shlomo HaMelech will do to try to recover.
Rav, what does that teach us about being on any high in any area of your life?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's okay to be on a high and it's good to be on a high and we want to be as long as we can on a high. But we cannot take it for granted. When you think that you turn it, and again, who are we? We're not talking about Shlomo HaMelech. We're learning from Shlomo HaMelech. Very different, okay? But when you acquired a level to the point that not only you're comfortable with what you have accomplished, but you start crossing lines and thinking that you're overpowered, that's when it becomes dangerous. When you're becoming too comfortable and almost too proud to a certain extent of your accomplishment. Now, I've told you already, I'm very repetitive, but this is what I live by. I told you the story of one of my Rabbanim, Yizacher Letov, Rabbi Avraham Ohana. He told me that the problem of working on Anava is that once you become Anav and you say, now I'm Anav, now you start working.
Who are you to say you're Anav?
Exactly. So working on the Anava, there's no working on the Anava. For sure you have to work on the Anava, but you're never going to be Anav. Because if you think you got to a place of Anava, that's Gava itself, right? That's ego itself. So this is the same thing. When Shlomo HaMelech comes and says, I eat the honey and it's honeycomb. I impact my world and other worlds. This is a fall down. This is a fall down. And there will be no indication in Shir HaShirim of the fall down. Meaning, he's not talking about it at all. He's drastically shifting to the rat race right now. Okay, how do I recuperate? How do I get back on track?
Which is a lesson in itself when something lo alenu bad happens, not to
You cannot drag it. Exactly. You cannot drag it. You cannot, cry over it. That's it. There was a problem. How do we solve it? And by the way, Akadosh Baruch Hu will take back Shlomo and protect Shlomo, because the fact that Shlomo HaMelech's writings are so blessed in Am Yisrael is in itself a witnessing, right? A proof that Hashem accepted Shlomo HaMelech's tshuva. Afilu Sefer Torah, Amunach ba'Aaron, talui b'mazal. The Sefer Torah that is in Aaron also has mazal. So, the Malbim finishes by saying, at least to conclude this nevuah, he said that he got so focused on the physicality's power through the spirituality, right, which was his high, that his focus shifted from spiritual to physical. Subconsciously, now he became physical, right? He was super spiritual. He took it down to physicality, and now he was enjoying the fact that the physicality is spiritual, but he drifted. And now the focus was on physicality. And he said that focus was so deep that until the last day of his life, he just could not let go of physicality.
I didn't get the logic. He was spiritual.
He was at the highest level of prophecy and spirituality, right? Except when we say prophecy, we're not talking about the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? And then what did he say? Now it's not, I cannot leave the spirituality there. I have to now infuse my body. So he started bringing spirituality down to the intellect, down to the instinct, down to the senses, to the midot, right? Good. And then he started using the physicality of his body, right, as a vector to channel his spirituality. Good. But where was his focus? On expressing physical things that are infused with spirituality. Slowly, his focus became only physicality. But that it was infused with spirituality, but the focus was physicality. So that focus became so part of him, like a drug. It became such a desire that the Malbim tells us he was not able to let go of that physical connection until the end of his life. It shows us also how dangerous, okay, the world of physicality is. How dangerous it is to play around with too much, crossing the line or walking on the line, which is unfortunately something that today a lot of people do. And they call it, I want to be on the middle road. The middle road is what? The middle road is eating kosher, but I can eat in a non-kosher restaurant, eating this, or doing this, or dressing a certain way, or acting Shabbat a certain way, fine lines. Fine lines. Shlomo HaMelech comes and tells us when you walk the fine line, you end up falling on the wrong side of the road. Who's greater than Shlomo HaMelech to teach us that lesson? Who can come and say, I'm better than Shlomo? I will not fall. This is
kosher style, no? They say.
yes, bravo, kosher style, kosher style, kosher style, kosher style. This is the conclusion of the third nevuah, and the dark period of Shlomo HaMelech, where he will be totally asleep, which means asleep from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And that's Pasuk Bet, Ani Yeshena. The Gaon Mivilna, which has a complete different approach in his Pirush, obviously on Shir HaShirim. Has a complete different pshat. Now we're starting the fifth perek. And he says, Bati lerani, I come to my garden. It's actually a very, very enlightening and very positive thing. Bati lerani, I came to my gan. I was able to come and coexist in the gan of a man, a garden where Hashem and a human can coexist. Where is it? It's in the head. So he says, let's see why. He says, Ari timori im besami. He says, the more is the smell, right? It's the mir that smells very strong. The smell, the sense of the smell. Achalti yareim divshi. I eat my honeycomb with the honey. My honey with the honeycomb is the taste. Shatiti yeni im halavi. I drink the wine and the milk is the shtiyah, to drink. He says, these are the three pleasures that man has. The smell, eating and drinking, right? These are the physical pleasures of the head. We know, the Gaon, according to himself, the sight and the hearing are two senses that were diminished at the time of the head of Adam HaRishon, right? He lost the pleasure of the sight and most of the pleasure of the sound. He retained pleasure of the smell and the full pleasure of the taste. He says if you take reach, the smell, achila, to eat, shtiya, to drink, rashi tevot, rosh, the head. The head of a person is controlled by the physicality of the head of a person is controlled by his smell, what he eats and what he drinks.
But today, Rab, the sight also is very influential.
Influential, but there's no pleasure to it. It triggers an instinct. When you smell, your nostrum have sensors that give you pleasure. When you drink or you eat, you taste, right? You hear, it has an impact. You see, it has an impact. But the head itself, the pleasure inside the head comes from the smell, taste, and drink.
And thoughts?
thought as metaphysics. There's no pleasure to it. It's not something you cannot say that your gray cells or your brain has a pleasure. So here we're talking about the physical pleasures, right? He says this pasuk is referring to the korbanot. To the korbanot, you have the achila of the korbanot, you have the eating of the korbanot, you have the wine that you drink from the korbanot, and you have the smell of the korbanot. And the korbanot are here for the teshuvah. And that's what it means. Eat, my beloved, drink and drip deeper and drip more, my lovers. Says the Gaon Vilna that in order to do teshuvah, when a person wants to do a teshuvah, his teshuvah has to be from the rosh. And the physical teshuvah a person can do from a perspective of the head, is through what his smell, his food, and the taste of what he drinks. This is the comparison to the korbanot. So when a person sacrifices what he smells, sacrifices what he eats and what he drinks, he does what is called the teshuvah of the head, of the rosh. If there is a teshuvah on a physical level, says the Gaon, now there is a vessel to do the teshuvah of what is spiritual within the head. So it's a vector. A person, you're going to tell me, going back to what you're saying, you want to do teshuvah of the sight, you want to do teshuvah of what you hear from Lashon Hara, you want to do teshuvah of your thoughts, start by doing teshuvah of what you eat, what you drink, and what you smell. So what is the teshuvah of the smell? Enjoying the smell of a perfume of a woman that is not yours. Or chas v'shalom, the smell of avodah zarah, right? Food and drink, it's easy, right? Be careful with what you eat, be very careful with what you drink. But if you're mekadesh, if you sanctify the smell and the taste, then you are material to sanctify your sight and what you allow yourself to listen to. This is the Gaon Vilna. This is the Gaon Vilna. So Be'ezrat Hashem, I guess that that concludes the first pasuk and the third nevuah, and now we're going to see how Shlomo HaMelech is going to rebound and try to win Hashem over again.
This was Malvin when you started, the second.
The first was the Malbim. What I just spoke about now is the Gaon.
At the end. Mm-hmm.
So,
Hashem, beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Very,
Rav.
Powerful lesson. Very powerful.
Wow.
Thank you, Rav.
Miami, more powerful.
So,
I love you guys. Take care.
Bye bye.
Chodesh Tov u'mevorach.